Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden. And today we're in the front yard and we are doing part 2 of my summer pruning series for the best summer blooms. So if you didn't catch part 1, I'll drop that in the video description below. But basically what I'm doing is I'm doing a prune on my gardens, a summer pruning. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm doing a cutback so that I can get the biggest, best bursts of blooms for this fall. I'm a little tongue-tied today. So basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going plant by plant, showing you how I'm cutting back each of them and then fertilizing everything at the end. And I'll show you my fertilizing process as well. I did want to show you, here's some of the bubble gum that I had cut back, bubble gum Supertunias, and a lot of people watched that video as well. And it is already putting on a ton of new growth. I trimmed it back drastically by probably about 75%. And then I fertilized it, and I am going to be fertilizing it again today. But I did want to show you all that it is bouncing back and it is putting on a ton of new growth, so I have a lot of hope for it. Now over here I have Liatris, and these are bulbs, and they've been planted here for quite a while, many years. This year I noticed it didn't give me a lot of color. I didn't get a lot of blooms, which was a little unusual. So what I'm going to do is I usually let my blooms stay a little bit longer, and this year I decided I was going to go ahead and cut back my blooms all the way, cut the stem stalks all the way back, and allow these plants to just really spend some time putting more energy into the growth of the bulbs. I don't know if I've maybe potentially gotten to a point where the Liatris is maybe too overgrown and it's time to divide it out. Let me know, those of you all who have grown Liatris before, let me know if you need to divide it or if you just let it do its thing. Now right here I have my little quick fire hydrangea, and it's doing beautifully, and I am not going to be pruning these blooms because these blooms are kind of fun in that they will turn a beautiful pinkish red hue for the fall. So I will be leaving these even if they don't look the best. Here's what a fresh bloom looks like, and then here are the older blooms, but they're still looking really nice, and this plant is really filling in considering it's its second year. Okay, so right here is some chocolate mint and some tricolor sage, and it is not planted in the ground. As you can see, the mint is not. So basically what I'm doing, oh my gosh, it smells so good. I'm going to give it a really nice hack back right here and just give it a nice clean up so that it can give me some fresh growth. I do like to use mint in arrangements. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm also being very careful not to drop any of this mint into my garden. And I think I'm going to give this sage a little bit of a haircut too. It looks like it got overwhelmed by the mint, which, you know, that makes sense. Okay, so my star Bethlehem bloomed. Look at that, y'all. Isn't she gorgeous? I'm obsessed. This guy is no less than 4 feet tall. I don't see any other blooms coming up. Only one bloom stalk came up. These are brand new bulbs, so they might not be mature enough, but yeah, these are amazing. I'm pretty obsessed. They're looking really good. So on my front porch I have Coleus, which is a larger scale Coleus with really big beautiful leaves, and you can see that it's starting to flower, which means it's starting to create seed. And when plants start to create seed, they're basically telling themselves like, hey, I'm done. So what I do want to do is I just want to go through here and I want to cut back all of these blooms from the plant, because we don't want our Coleus going to seed. Then it will really put a lot of energy into creating seeds as opposed to taking care of itself. Also, everywhere you cut these, it's going to send off double branches, which is really great, and will encourage a lot more growth in the Coleus. So you can just see, as simple as this, I'm just cutting above a set of 2 leaves and cutting out the blooms. Very simple, very easy. You really don't even need the pruners. And I do think I'm going to prune back a couple of these leaves that aren't as pretty, because like this one right here has a lot of damage. Looks like some kind of insect has been munching on them. So I think I'm just going to take this guy back quite significantly. Yeah, there's some older leaves. And that'll open this up a little bit and make more room, more airflow. There's a lot of beautiful leaves, fresh leaves trying to come in down here. I mean, well, why don't we do an experiment? Let's cut back this particular one and allow it some more airflow to have some of these brand new leaves grow in. So we'll see what that happens, or how that does, and I can kind of give you guys an update on where that stands in a few weeks. Now I do have a begonia right here. This is a double up begonia pink by Proven Winners. So I think I'm going to give it a little bit of a haircut as well, just to encourage some new fresh blooms. One of the things about the summer is plants are just working overtime to survive. And so if you end up cutting off a few of their blooms, it's helpful in that they can put more effort into surviving as opposed to producing blooms. That's usually one of my big goals when I'm doing summer pruning, is to help with survival to the fall. We are going into our hottest times of the summer, which is August, and it can get pretty rough. So by giving this a nice haircut, we'll see what ends up happening. And I have two of these over here. So I've got this one up here and I've got one right below it. I'm going to not trim the one right below it, and then we will trim this one and see how it does and see if there's a difference between the two. Okay, right down here is a red Spirea. It is a Proven Winner Spirea. I can't remember the exact name, but I'll put it down below. This Spirea has been struggled last year big time, and I gave it a nice haircut. So I'm actually going to do the same thing this time, and I'm going to take off some of these longer branches and really just kind of give it a nice little cleanup, freshen up, since it had such a hard time last year. And I had actually not pruned it in a couple of years. Truthfully, I forget about the Spirea back here. It was one of the first plants I planted in this front garden. And I don't think it was planted in the right place, in that it's not a very large scale plant. It's kind of smaller. So it kind of gets hidden back in here. So coming through and trimming it now gives it the opportunity to put on new growth prior to the winter, and it will bloom on all of its new growth. And I'm just kind of giving a nice trim back here. It looks a little rough. It always looks a little rough, you know, when you're giving plants a trim back. But I do think that this guy, since it had such a hard time last year and it really benefited from a nice trim last year, I think it's worth it to do that again. So I have quite a few heucheras in here, and I planted these last fall. These will be their first summer going here, and a lot of people are interested to see how they do. Just because a lot of people in my area have struggled with heucheras in the past. And so what I'm doing is I'm pruning out all of the bloom stalks. It's done blooming. They were absolutely beautiful this year. I grew the wild berry, black pearl, and cherry truffles. And it's kind of obsessed with them. I had no idea that I would end up liking heucheras as much as I did. I was kind of shocked. But I loved the bounce of the colored foliage. I thought it was so fun. And I would really like these to look really good for the fall. So we'll start with the bloom stalks all the way around. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to come back in and trim out some of these leaves that don't look as great and make room for some new ones to come through. Because when a leaf is dying or struggling, the plant is putting effort into caring for that guy. And actually, I'm just going to pull. It might be easier. He is putting effort into caring for that particular leaf, and so if you take that away and he doesn't have to deal with it, that's a good thing. We'll just give this a little clean up. And there are lots of new leaves coming underneath, which is a good sign, I think. But those of you who have grown heuchera before, you let me know. Okay, so I do have heuchera under here, and these are Hellebore. And I'm shockingly still have bloom stalks, so I'm going to cut those out. Just like that. And then I'm going to remove a couple of these larger leaves that are casting a ton of shade on my heuchera, just to give it a little bit of space. There we go. That's it, just opening it up a little bit so that it can have a little bit of breathing room. Okay, back here there's actually a terracotta pot. I will put up in the, I'll put a picture up of what it looked like before, but it is covered with, it's filled with, this is a Henry Dulberg salvia. It's got a Salvia Greggi here, it's got some verbena, it's got some petunias. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Dulberg, and this is a drastic cutback, but I am cutting above sets of leaves in order to encourage another growth spurt from the Dulberg salvia, Henry Dulberg salvia. Okay, so I've done that. Now, let's go back to the Salvia Greggi, which has gotten super woody. I'm not sure if this is going to come back or not. I do see some leaves down low. It looks like it's trying to put on some new growth. So, and you can see, I mean, these aren't looking great anyway. So I'll go ahead and cut these out and see if the plant will give me another round. Okay, I've also got some very leggy petunia in here. So we'll give it a little bit of a trim back as well. Everything's going to look harsh, y'all. But we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can refresh this a little bit. Looks good. Okay, so in this area we have a Coffea. And what basically I'm going to be doing on this one is I'm going to cut it by about half. I'm just going to cut off all the blooms at the top and allow it to refocus on starting another round of blooms. So I'm basically just grabbing a handful and then cutting it about halfway just to make sure that it will bloom again. I think if I cut this one all the way to the ground, I'm not sure that it would bloom again. It's my first year growing it. So those of y'all who have grown Coffea before, you let me know. But you can see it's super leggy, which is definitely a sign that it needs to be cut back. Okay, underneath it I have a Scaevola. It's a white Whirlwind Scaevola, and I mean there's a container under here, it's hard to even see. So we're going to give this guy a nice trim back too. And I'm just grabbing a handful. I can't go stem by stem on this, it'll take forever. There's some not great pieces under here that I'm just going to cut out. Look how much this plant is already bouncing upwards. Let's cut out this bad stuff underneath here. After getting, like, it's about a 50% haircut on it. So we got some rain today, so all of my Limelight Hydrangea heads are watered down, but I did want to go ahead and cut back these Gladiolus blooms from in here. Remember, the bulbs are perennial in my area, so those will just continue, but I had a lot of fun with this planter this year, utilizing these branches as a trellis. Okay, so I've got my heated up Gaillardia yellow, and I've got a whole bunch of Salvia here. The Salvia definitely needs a nice trim back, so I'm basically going to come in here and I'm going to trim off the tops of the blooms just to encourage some new fresh growth, hopefully some more blooms. And my heated up Gaillardia is kind of going bonkers. It's huge back here. I don't know if I should give that a trim or not. What do y'all think? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim the Gaillardia a little bit. I'm just going to trim the dead aspects of it. Clean those up a little bit. I feel like I might give the Proven Winners people a call and ask them if I should be pruning the Gaillardia or is it supposed to be super leggy like this? Because it gets a lot of sun. I don't recall it being as leggy like this before, so maybe it's not getting enough sun in this area. It sure is gorgeous though, isn't it? And it's just covered in bees. Okay, over here we have a bunch of Dusty Miller that has started to bloom, and some of it is long past bloom. So we're going to cut out the bloom stalks so that it will keep putting beautiful growth into more leaves as opposed to trying to flower. And I'm literally just following the bloom stalk as far down as it goes and then cutting that out. Super simple. Okay, my Suncredible sunflowers right here have not flourished as well as they have in the past. And now I'm recalling last year I had the same issue and I gave them a little haircut and then they went bonkers. So I'm just going to grab a couple of handfuls at the top, give a little cut, see if that kicks these guys into gear. Okay, so right here I have some Calibrachoa, and this is not a Proven Winners variety. This was from Homegrown, and it was one of their varieties. And I just started with a pot, and I put the pot in here, and it's just grown like bonkers. It's been very happy, and this is the only way I've been able to grow Calibrachoa is to put it in its own pot with its own water source. So it's worked really well. So I'm just going to give it a trim down low where it's been spreading a lot, and give it a little bit of a reprieve. Instead of supporting, this is probably ends up being a 50% cutback over here. And just pulling some of this over and just giving it a nice little haircut. Clean it up, freshen it up, and allow it to start some new blooms if it chooses to. But it's done beautiful. So right here I have Dahlias that have come back for me year after year, and I thought this variety was Color Spectacle, and I do have Color Spectacle in here, but a lot of y'all said no, this wasn't. So I think this might be palmaris. So y'all let me know what you think. I'll put a picture. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down and cut some of the stalks off right above a set of 2 leaves. Just once again to give this a little bit of reprieve and go ahead and give me a new flush of blooms. And I know this looks pretty harsh. Everything I do with pruning is pretty harsh. Let me give you a close-up of one of these flowers. They're really pretty. And then down low, or back here, I see another variety that's blooming, and this is called, this one I know is called Mother's Choice. Let me show you what this looks like. Super pretty. Still a little trimming on that. Now down low here, I've got some dead dahlia leaves that don't look great. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the stalks because there are green points in here that are trying to come up, that are trying to put on growth. So we'll just do this nice little cleanup. Okay, I've also got some Penstemon that has gone to seed for the year. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a bunch of those bloom stalks. Okay, and then I've got some Petunias in here that are doing very poorly. So I'm going to give these a pretty harsh cutback and I'll fertilize them, see what happens. I don't know if these are going to make it, this particular variety. And then lastly, I've got some Odessa dianthus right here. Just going to give it a little brief cut. It hasn't done great in this location, so I might consider moving this in the fall. I just planted it this last spring. Maybe it just needs more time to establish. But I'm just cutting off all the dead blooms. Okay, and the last thing for pruning is this explosion grass. And this stuff reseeds itself. So basically I'm just grabbing a handful and I'm cutting it back at about 50% and hoping for a new flush. And so the last thing I'm going to do on this project is I'm going to fertilize, and I'm using the Proven Winners Premium Water Soluble Plant Food, and it's specifically for flowering plants, and it's a 24, 12, 17. And a lot of y'all told me it also has is it chelated iron in it, so it's really good if your plants have an iron deficiency as well. And basically it comes with a bag like this and a little scoop, and it's 1 scoop per gallon, and I believe this is a 2-gallon pot. And so I put the fertilizer in, fill her up, And then I just am going to water the plants that I worked on today. Basically the ones that I want. Like, I'm not going to give any of this to the Liatris because I'm not looking for another bloom cycle from it. And I can get away with probably about 2 or 3 plants per watering can. I know I say it all the time, the humidity. It's a lot. Okay. All right, so got that done. That's part 2, so that's the front. So I've done the side yard and I've done the front yard for my summer pruning. So the last portion I have is the backyard. And that one's going to be a little bit different because I'm also going to be thinning my zinnia patch. So that whole one's going to look a little bit different. But that should be out in the next week or so. Another upcoming one I have is how to prune your mums for fall blooms. That'll be coming up soon as well. And I'll be showing you and updating you on all my heirloom chrysanthemums that I've been growing on this year. And they're all looking really good. I'm getting psyched for what they're going to be producing in the fall. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know my latest videos are up. And make sure you check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.